right, back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup. So one thing I did was I was getting sick of a little bit of spot rust, just little like surface rust that was showing up on all the spots that I had welded or fabricated panels for. Just made me annoyed that these brand new panels that I'm putting in were getting rust on them, and so just went through. I use this gel rust remover stuff. You just spray it on, hit it with a little wire brush, let that sit for, I don't know, 15-20 minutes or so. Then you just wipe it off, and then I just clean it up with a little bit of alcohol, and then spray it. I only put just like one light coat of paint on everything. I'm not trying to think that that's going to be even the primer. I'm going to get that down to bare metal, put epoxy primer. I need seam sealer, all kinds of other stuff. So this is just to make me not cranky that I'm getting rust on all my new work that I did. And so took a little bit of time to do that in order to get all these panels with just a little bit of paint on them, so I feel better about all the work that I did. And so now working on fabricating the firewall. So I got the engine in here, so I make sure that I get the firewall set up to fit the full engine and transmission. You see I'm just tacking that little panel in right now. What I'll end up doing is like this little opening right here. When I get the engine out of here and I get a bit more supporting welds in there, I'll just hammer that into place and then weld in that little gap that's in there. I got a mess for sure with the steering column. And so here on the inside, you can see I had to cut a big old piece out of where the column mounts in order to clear where the intake manifold and some of them vacuum lines and stuff. I got the whole back end of the engine assembled, and so that should be all the bits and pieces that are on the back end of everything here, so it shouldn't stick out any further than it is. I'm still going to make sure, to give myself a couple inches of clearance, even though everything should be where it's at. I don't want anything buttoned directly up against the firewall. But yeah, so I had to cut a bit of extra room there, and I'll have to end up fabricating a new way for that column to mount. You can see that I only got 3 bolts. I think there were like 6 or 7 before, so lost a bunch of structure, and I'll have to figure out a way to get that mounted on there and stable. The other thing I had to do is the slave cylinder for the clutch fork mounts right there. So I did have to relief the floor a little bit more on this side. It's getting tight for sure. Like, I'm a small person, and like the amount of room for the pedal assembly is getting tight in here for sure. So, I'm going to want to get the actual slave cylinder mounted in there for real, and, make sure that I can get that about as tight as I can get it to it. Because there's just not a whole lot of room here on the floorboard. You could see this little hole right here. That's where the bottom bracket for the existing throttle had been. And so the throttle set like right here, which I don't know if I'll be able to do that with like where the slave cylinder is going to mount and where the clutch fork is at. I actually ordered a clutch fork. I contacted the company that does a lot of this stuff, this company Drift Motion. I sent them some pictures and everything, and they were like, what the hell is that weird ass stamped steel clutch fork? Like, these engines and transmissions don't come with stamped steel, they come with cast. So then I looked online, and sure enough, like if you look up W58 transmission, the clutch fork doesn't look like that. And so I ordered a clutch fork. We'll see if the alignment for where that sits is going to be different than the one that's in here now. So this is going to get tricky to try to mount all these things in here. What I'll probably end up having to do is basically come straight up right here, and I might have to mount the pedal assembly in here to make sure that like I even got a place that I can put pedals, or if I got to do, you know, some sort of brand new or, you know, custom pedal assembly, you know, be stuffing the clutch basically as far over as I possibly can. You can see the mounting hole for the clutch master is right there. And so, you know, the clutch pedal would be sitting right in here in order to be in alignment. You can see where the hole for the brake master sits right there. The brake would sit here. I mean, like I said, there's just not a whole lot of room left for where the throttle's got to go. So I might end up, you know, mounting the pedal assembly in here just to make sure I got enough room for everything. But yeah, I mean, the fabrication of the Firewall is going to be a lot harder than I thought. What I'm planning on doing is, you can see, I don't know, it's probably too hard to see, but like the angles up underneath the Firewall, like it ramps up right here and then it goes flat across, and then, you know, it ramps back down on the other side. And so there's all these like weird angles and everything. And then there's, you know, a bunch of bead rolling on the, you know, up under it. And so, like, you know, trying to get panels to fit up underneath there with not, you know, so much gap that I can't get weld in there has been a real pain. I tried to make a big panel in order to minimize how many little panels I had to make, and, you know, get a more structure and everything with a bigger panel. But that I don't have the talent, to be honest. Like, I don't know how in the hell to get all those angles and curves and accommodate for the bead roll and clearance for the engine. So I'll end up be making a bunch of little panels. I'm hoping that if I can kick these ones inward and do one on either side and then get a flat panel going across, then I'm going to start dealing with like flat pieces of metal and not all these weird ass curves that I'm currently having to deal with. This bottom section here, I can already tell, like with the steering column and all the other crap there, that is going to be a brutal one in order to make. There's going to definitely be some cursing and hammering in order to get that sucker to fit, because, you know, you could see I got like a weird angle going that way. It goes down and then it meets up with the floor, and I need to give myself some room so I can mount the steering column. I mean, this piece right here is going to be a bear. On the other side, it's not nearly as bad, right? So, you know, once I can get this piece in, it's just a straight shot down. I just go perfectly straight down and then, you know, meet up with the floor. And, you know, I can cut the floor to even be straight. Like, I don't need to even follow the angles that are there now. I can make the panel and then scribe the floor and cut the floor in order to get it to fit the panel that I make. And so this side is like, whatever, I can do whatever I want. But I don't have a whole bunch of options on this side. Like the steering column, you can see, you know, I cut some of it out. There ain't a whole lot of meat left on that, you know, bracket that holds the steering column in place. Like, I can't cut that thing anymore. And it's not like I can put the panel wherever I want. Like, I need a hole there, and I need the steering column to be able to fit. So, like I said, that one's going to be a mess. So, all right, yeah, that's kind of where I sit with all this stuff. I'm not sure. I'll probably, since I don't want to deal with that mess, I'll probably try to get the flat piece across and then the other piece on the passenger side. I could do a whole ton of work on the passenger side because there's nothing going on over here. You know, I got everything bolted in place. I know all the clearances I need and everything. And so I can fabricate quite a lot over here without needing to worry about the pedal assembly and slave cylinder and all that other stuff. So I'll probably focus on the passenger side since that one's going to be a bit more straightforward. So, all right, thanks. See you in the next one.